truly an honor to share this time with you. At this time, please remove your hats, put your hand over your heart, silence your cell phone, and please stand and remain standing for the presentation of the colors by the VFW Post 2210 Color Guard, then the playing of the national anthem and the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. Please keep your hand over heart and hats removed until we return to our seats. Thank you.
Detail, call, right, P, post colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
At this time, the VFW Auxiliary Coloring Contest winners will come to the stage to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. With right hand over heart, we will now start the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, forward. Color guard, regroup. Right, forward, form. Detail, call. Call out.
You may be seated. At this time, Mrs. Sharon Giesler and Mrs. Lois Fleeg will award the students from the coloring contest with a certificate and a gift. Students, when you hear your name, please come up to Mrs. Giesler and Mrs. Fleeg to receive your award and then take your seat. Thank you.
Good morning. Is this on? Morning. Like she said, I'm Sharon Giesler, and this is Lois Fleeg, representing the VFW Auxiliary. And we sponsored a contest, not just coloring. I saw a lot of writing on some of these. So we're here to present awards. We have 3 awards at each grade level. And I'm going to start with the 3rd place winner in pre-kindergarten. So the 3rd place winner is Harper Riggs. Come here, Harper.
Miss Harper. Oh, there.
Good job. Here. Okay, 2nd place at pre-kindergarten is Lincoln Palmer. Good job, buddy. And 1st place for pre-K is Faith Burr. Good job, Faith.
Congratulations,
All right, moving on to kindergarten. At the 3rd place is Olivia Vickers. Good job, Olivia. There you go, babe. This way. 2nd place, Addison Bone. Congratulations. And 1st place at the kindergarten level is Mackenzie Amschler. Good job, Mackenzie.
Congratulations.
Okay, 1st grade. 3rd place winner, Savannah Sansucci. Savannah? Savannah not here today? Okay. Okay, 2nd place, Lucas Ram. There you are. Good job.
Congratulations.
And 1st place at 1st grade is Ruby Cox. Good job, Ruby. Okay, moving to 2nd grade. Our 3rd place winner is Lydia Brown. Great job. 2nd place, Noah Kurtz. Good job, Noah. And 1st place at 2nd grade is Ashton Knoll. Good job, Ashton. And we found Savannah. Good job, Savannah. Don't lose it, huh? Okay, 3rd grade. Our 3rd place winner, Kimberly Banderas. Good job, Kimberly. 2nd place, Addison Lawrence. Good job. And 1st place at the 3rd grade level, Cadence Lanternman. Good job. 4th grade, 3rd place winner, Ethan Kettinger. Good job, Ethan. 2nd place, Sarah Leach. Good job, Sarah. And 1st place for 4th grade is Jersey Quinn. Good job, Jersey. Okay, last but not least, 5th grade. 3rd place winner, Sawyer Brown. Oh, I'm sorry, Sawyer Bowman. 5th grade, 2nd place, Chase Thompson. You're welcome. And 1st place, Maya Prideaux. Did I say that right? Okay. Good job, Maya.
Good job, Mike. Come on this way.
I'd like to thank all of those winners, but for all of the other students who participated, thank you for your hard work and for the teachers who got it all organized. So thank you, and I hope we can do it again next year.
Every year, we recognize our veterans and military members that are able to join us today. We have many, many who aren't for various reasons, but for those that could make it today, we're going to say your name, your relationship to your student that you're sitting with, and your branch and time of service. So when you hear your name, student and guest, please stand up, and at the end, we will recognize all of our veterans and military guests with a round of applause. So beginning, we have John Apt, grandfather of Anthony Apt, Army peacetime. Connie Bohack, grandmother of Kaylee, Chessa, and Joshua Haynes, Air Force and Army. Virgil Boyer, grandfather of Lydia, Ethan, and Justin Boyer, Marines, Vietnam. Robert J. Brantner, father of Alexander Brantner, Army, Operation Enduring Freedom. Violet Brooks, mother of Damon Brooks, Marine Corps and Military Police. Jim Brown, grandfather of Lydia Brown, Navy. George Caro, grandfather of Garrett Gallup, Army, Berlin Crisis. William Cornell, uncle of Trevor Beckett, Chloe McGonigal, and John McGonigal, uncle of Faith Holmes, Army, Iraq War. Also, William Cornell is the father of Keani Johnson, Cameron Beckett, and Kiara Cornell. Divine Lane, cousin of Allison Boyette, Air Force, Operation Enduring Freedom. Duncan Russell, grandfather of Jackson Boland, Marines, Desert Storm. Daniel Evans, father of Simon Evans, Army. Darwin Evelsizer, grandfather of Dane and Reese Evelsizer and father-in-law of Mrs. Stephanie Evelsizer, Air Force. Norman Gallup, father of Garrett Gallup. William Gegg, grandfather of Trenton Werner and father-in-law of Mrs. Nanya Gegg, Marines and Vietnam War. Daniel Giesler, grandfather of Caitlin, Riley, and Macy Mall, Vietnam. Andrew Grass, father-in-law of Mrs. Kim Grass and grandfather of Garrett and Mackenzie Grass. Dennis Grass, grandfather of Molly Grass, Navy and Vietnam War. Larry Gray, grandfather of Kirsten and Corbin Gray, Navy, Vietnam War. Vince Grine, grandfather of Owen Hook, Army Reserves, Vietnam era. Ryan Hawkins, father of Sean Hawkins, Army, Desert Storm. Roger Heil Sr., grandfather of Maya Klein, Navy and Vietnam War. Welly Jokerst, grandfather of Kayla Jokerst, Army. Vernon Kist, father of Mrs. Joyce Jokerst, Army and peacetime. Charles Kohler, grandfather of Mason Leckie, Army and Vietnam War. James Kramer, grandfather of Ava Ram, Army. Well, that would be Ava and Corey Ram. Shane Leach, father of Sarah and Sophia Leach, Navy. Ronald Lewis, father of Ashton Lewis, uncle to Abby Stomberg, Iraq, War, Army. Royce McDonald, grandfather of Nathaniel and Keegan Womack, Army. Dale Monier, grandfather of Paul Taylor, Army, Vietnam War. Charles David Moore, grandfather of Brooklyn Moore, Army. Edward Nagger, grandfather of Daniel Ballou, Marine Corps, Vietnam. Francisco Oreen, grandfather of Fallon Mitchell, Vietnam. Michael Oddie, grandfather of Anthony Apt, Army, Vietnam War. Don Pritchard, grandfather of Savannah Michael, Army. Dale Probst, grandfather of Kyra, Rhea, Hayes, Broden, and Barrett Kreitler, Marines, Vietnam War. Floyd Robeson, grandfather of Anthony Bethel, Army, Vietnam War. James L. Roth, great-grandfather of Reese Wibbenmeyer and grandfather of Mrs. Amelia Wibbenmeyer, Army, Korean War. Scott Roth, uncle of Sierra Velker, Navy, Operation Iraqi Freedom. Scott Schomburg, friend of Jaden Miner, Army, Operation Iraqi Freedom. Eric Schmermerhorn, uncle of Mason Leckie, Air Force. Tom Schweigert, grandfather of Justin Schweigert and Mabry Jokerst, Marines, Vietnam War. Bob Seibel, grandfather of Connor Seibel, Navy, peacetime service. James Stafford, father of Wyatt and Savannah Stafford, reserves. Brad Stoll, grandfather of Landon Bosler, Army. Glenn Stretch, great-grandfather of William Urick, Army and Vietnam War. Larry Thompson, great-grandfather of Oliver Thompson, Army, Vietnam era. Aaron, I hope I say this correctly, Tonius, uncle of Lila Nix, Air Force. Bob Trollinger, grandfather of Mason Trollinger and Bryce Trollinger, Air Force. William Vickers, great-grandfather of Olivia Vickers, Army, Vietnam. Mike Velker, grandfather of Sierra Velker, Air Force, Vietnam. Earl Walker, grandfather of Lydia Brown and Oliver Thompson, father of Mrs. Kemp Brown and Mrs. Katie Thompson, Army. Sarah Weibrecht, mother of Kennedy and Brooklyn Weibrecht, Army. James Weiler, grandfather of Carly Weiler and father-in-law of Mrs. Jill Weiler, Vietnam War. Leroy Weinhold, grandfather of Katie and Kylie Brake, Army, Vietnam. Lonnie Williams, grandfather of Kaylee Brissett, Army, Vietnam. And Mr. Williams is grandfather of Jacob Brissett, also. Andrew P. Wolk, father of Heidi and Timothy Wolk, Air Force, Gulf War, Operation Iraqi. Charles Woodard, grandfather of Ashlyn Uding, grandfather of Abigail Andrew and Olivia Woodard, and father of Mr. Matt Woodard and father-in-law for Mrs. Sheila Woodard, Army. Brian Worley, grandfather of Aubrey Worley, Navy, Bosnia and Persian Gulf. Sterling Wells, father of Haley Wells, Army, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Marzine Bader, Korean War, Army. Ray Gettinger, grandfather of Ashton Knoll, Vietnam, Army. Sean Baker, uncle of Mikey Dunn, Iraqi War, Korea, Army. Michael Neal, father of Mackenzie Neal, Persian Gulf War, Navy. And although we do our very, very best not to overlook anyone, sometimes we do with all the applications and paperwork. So if I've overlooked any veterans or military guests, please stand at this time. I have my color guard names. Gentlemen, let me go get my list of color guard names because we do want to give these gentlemen a big honor. They help us every year at all of the schools, and we truly appreciate their service. 1 minute. Our color guard members today, Mr. Leon Meyer, Mr. Marty Wipkoff, Mr. Dennis Grass, Mr. Vince Weiler, Mr. John Buat, and Mr. Dan Giesler. Thank you, VFW Post 2210 Color Guard. At this time, let's give, and Mr. Charles Robbins. Thank you. At this time, please stand and give all of our veterans and military guests a hand.
Mike Robbins, military.
Okay. Mr. Stupi also told me of a veteran we overlooked, Mr. Mike Robbins. Do you have a student with you also today? Okay, you're related to Charles? All right, we have Mike Robbins, father of Charles Robbins. Anyone else? All right, thank you. At this time, now the fifth grade students will perform the white table ceremony, followed by a moment of silence.
This table will be set for all the servicemen and women who are either missing in action or prisoners of war. Let us remember all the men and women from all branches of service that are too often forgotten. The table is round to show our everlasting concern for our missing men and women. Remember.
The white tablecloth is used to show purity of their intentions to respond to the country's call to duty.
Remember.
The white candle is for a hope that peace will come.
Remember.
The Bible is for the people who are missing so they might keep the faith.
Remember.
The red ribbon is for our continued determination to find them.
Remember.
A single rose reminds us of the families and friends who keep faith while they wait for their return.
Remember.
The lemon stands for the bitter fate of those who are captured and missing in a foreign land.
Remember.
The salt represents the family's tears.
Remember.
A black napkin is placed here for the sadness of captivity.
Remember.
The glass is upside down because they cannot toast with us today.
Remember.
We will now extinguish the candle. Let us transfer its flame to our hearts so we will always remember.
Remember. Until they all come home. Remember.
Thank you, fifth grade students. Now, please stand for the playing of taps by 11th grade St. Genevieve High School student Bryce Trollinger, grandson of veteran Bob Trollinger, and remain standing and join our St. Genevieve Elementary faculty, staff, and student body in the singing of America, My Country, 'Tis of Thee.
Detail, pants up, present, forward.
You may be seated. This concludes our Veterans Day tribute today. We have so many people to thank. We would like to thank the VFW Post 2210 Color Guard and Auxiliary, the veterans, military members, and their guests for sharing this special time with us. You are all the role models that our students look up to, and a wonderful example of patriotism and pride in our country. Thank you to all the St. Genevieve Elementary students, teachers, and staff for their contribution and hours of hard work to prepare for the program today. And a very, very special thanks to our Veterans Day Committee for their dedication to this annual event that honors our veterans and military members. We also want to extend an invitation to all veterans and military members and guests to the St. Genevieve High School and Middle School Tribute and Luncheon tomorrow. Their doors will open at 11:30 and lunch is served at 12:30 with the Veterans Tribute beginning at 1:45 till 3. So we hope many of you can join us tomorrow also. Thanks to Melissa Otto, Jason Bowman, Brandon Crump, and the St. Gen R2 maintenance and custodial staff for your help with the many details today. After the retiring of the colors, I will announce grade levels to meet their teacher leaders in designated areas, and all students will then exit by class from the rear of the building to the front. So we ask that guests remain seated until all students have exited the PAC to return to our building. And now, the VFW Post 2210 Color Guard will retire the colors. Please stand.
Detail forward. Right, please. Retrieve colors. Color guard, regroup. Right, please. Forward, forward. Detail, home. All right.
I also have one big thank you I want to give, and that is to our St. Genevieve Elementary students. Their behavior today was respectful, quiet, and I want to thank them because they did an amazing job. Thank you, students. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. And on Veterans Day Monday, we will all keep you in our thoughts as well. And at this point, we will go ahead and have our students exit and come back to the building. So kindergartners, will you please meet Mrs. Keeker down here? Oh, thank you. Mrs. Yamnitz gave me. It's just our students that are sitting with a special guest. Classes, you stay with your teacher, and you'll go back to the building with them. All right, so kindergartners who are with a special guest today, come down and meet Mrs. Keeker. First grade, Mrs. Trollinger, right here in the center. And second grade, Mrs. Fritsch. Okay, and preschoolers, please come down and meet Mrs. Ketting over here. Okay. Coloring and drawing contest winners, please go back to your classroom teachers right now. All right, when all of these kiddos are